Hello and welcome to Grouchy Geeks episode 25. My name's Steve, my co-host is Scott.
Hello.
This episode we've got a bit of a mixed bag as usual, some news and reviews, and then for our main feature we're going to be talking about the YouTube Red series Cobra Kai. So we'll try not to spoil it too much, but we might have to do a bit up front, spoiler free, and then spoilers towards the end, but we'll see how the discussion goes. So just to give you some warning ahead of time. So, do you want to kick us off with some news, Scott?
Yes. So one thing that we're not going to talk about, and then completely break that by talking briefly about it, is we've now both seen Infinity War, haven't we?
Yes.
So every other podcast in the world is doing a special about Infinity War, and we thought we would not do that and buck the trend, but I think it's just fair to say we were both pleased by it.
Yes, excellent. Loved it, Phil. Loved it. Can't wait to see it again at some point, but I'm not sure I'll get to see it at the cinema before it leaves. Or at the moment, it seems to still be there, so I might be able to squeeze another viewing in. Yeah,
I have to say, I went in feeling slightly cynical because of the grouchy old geek that I am. The fact that everybody was heaping praise on it just made. I went in there thinking, well, it's clearly not going to be that good. like I kind of went in wanting to dislike it, because everybody had been praising it so much. But it was a masterpiece. So they won me over from beginning to end. I thought it was just a stunning climax to the last 10 years of Marvel movies.
Yeah, but thankfully we've only got a year to wait to the next one because we shot them back to back. Normally it'd be a couple of years if it was a sort of a Star Wars film or something like that, but I'm so glad there's only a year. I'm not sure I could have waited any longer, but anyway. I've got first bit of news. It's a strange one, but something I'm quite fond of and I'm looking forward to in a weird way, and this is the fact that there's going to be a third Bill and Ted film.
Yes.
You heard about this?
I heard about it. I think it could be great. I think it's. I mean, we're talking about Cobra Kai, right? Which is not a million miles away in the sense that this was a film about really quite young people going back 30 years, and now we've got something coming back with these people now much older. So. Yeah, I like it. I like Keanu Reeves. The other guy hasn't aged quite so well as Keanu.
No, Alex Winter.
Yeah, but yeah, I think it could be lots of fun.
Yeah, and it's following that same sort of pattern in the fact that the time traveling days are over, and now they're middle aged, and they've got their own commitments and families and stuff to deal with, and yet the world is in danger once again, and these two middle aged rockers now have to go out and save the universe, which it sounds really quite fun. Which is what the other two films were. So I'm kind of looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think it could be great.
Yeah, excellent. So what's your next bit of news?
Slightly self-indulgent bit of news, which was I've now been, along with Dan and Gavin, the side from the Psychic Cast, to Blade Runner Secret Cinema. And it was amazing. I absolutely loved it. So if you don't know, Secret Cinema is you go and see a film, but they give you a character to dress up in advance, and you sort of interact with the characters from the film, and they recreate the sets and stuff, and then you go and watch in this case Blade Runner afterwards, and it was superb. I absolutely loved going to it. But one of the things about it is that it's all meant to be a mystery. Like, you don't know where it is, even right up until you get to the venue, and you don't know what's going on. So in order to try and get my thoughts down and do a podcast about it, I've recorded about 45 minutes of me talking about the experience. Okay. And that is edited and that is done. But I'm not going to post it until the run is over, which I think is early June or early July.
Okay.
So I'm going to sit on that. I wanted to record it whilst it was still fresh in my mind, but now that that's done, I'll release it in a month or so's time once the event itself is over. But if you like Blade Runner and you can get to the UK, specifically London, then you've still got time to go, and it's an amazing experience. So I can't recommend it highly enough.
Excellent. It's something I wanted to go and do, but I haven't had a chance to. So I'm not sure I'll make it. But yes, all the other ones sounded fantastic as well. The Back to the Future one in particular sounded amazing. So
yeah, so I did Star Wars as well. A couple of years ago, and that was also amazing. So they do an absolutely incredible job. And if you're not interested in Blade Runner, their next one is in August, I think, which is going to be Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet. So not my sort of thing,
not
but
me either.
If it is, then I can't recommend it highly enough because it's an amazing experience to go.
Okay. So at the moment, it's renewal season in TV land and cutting season and new shows coming up season. I'm not going to go through them all because there's so many out there at the moment. Lots of things are dropping by the wayside. Some things are being saved last minute. Lucifer, which is a show that I really like, has been cut. Brooklyn Nine-Nine was cancelled, and then another network picked it up the day after, which was great. Fox cancelled that. Thanks, Fox. Someone else rescued it. Lost in Space. I don't know if you've been watching that.
Loved it, yeah.
So that's been
Absolutely
picked up for a
brilliant.
second season, which, like you, really loved it. Thought it was brilliant. A great family sci-fi show. The first one I've seen in ages and ages. A friend of mine's watching it with his sort of 7-year-old son, and they're both really enjoying it. So that's been picked up for a second season, which is great. And the other one I was going to mention is Santa Clarita has been picked up for season 3.
Awesome. Yeah, another brilliant show.
It's so dark and so twisted, and the dialogue in it is just so spot on for some of the scenes, and it's just absolutely brilliant. So that's been picked up for a 10-episode season 3, which we'll get next year. So I can't wait for it. I might have to go back and actually watch the first 2 again now that I know a bit more about it and watched the show. So it's just brilliant. It's just so good.
Did you? This is my short-term memory here. Did you mention The Expanse?
That has been cancelled.
It's been cancelled.
Yes,
but it also looks like it's going to get a Brooklyn Nine-Nine style reprieve.
Ooh.
In that, although the network has cancelled it,
yep.
The production company are now shopping it round to other publishers in order to actually continue it, and it looks like they're going to get lucky. And so even though it's cancelled, there's a strong chance it's still going to continue.
Brilliant.
And given that in every single country in the world, apart from the United States and Canada, it's it's considered a Netflix show.
Yes.
I would imagine there's probably a strong chance that it's going to be Netflix that picks it up, but we'll see.
I hope so. I have been enjoying it. The first season was a bit slow for me, but it picked up. And then the second season just been brilliant. So, that's another one I'd like to see come back. There's so much TV now compared to when we were growing up. It's hard to keep up on something. So someone will say, have you seen this? And I'd be like, I've not even heard of it.
Yeah.
Never mind, I've seen
insane,
it.
Isn't it?
So it's... I keep thinking, I want to go back and watch so-and-so. And I'm thinking, I haven't rewatched something on purpose in quite a while now, especially a long-run series. I'm just getting toward the end of a rewatch of Deep Space Nine, but I kind of broke off for 2 months to watch other stuff, and I might now go back just to wrap it up so I can say that I've done it. But that's a rare thing.
So I try to watch an episode of Star Trek a day, normally when I'm cooking dinner.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of mid-season 4 of Deep Space Nine at the moment. So we're obviously watching it roughly at the same time.
Well, I've got to say, it's a lot slower than I remembered, Deep Space Nine. I thought, it kicks off with the war, and that's really good. I'm halfway through, I think, Series 6... and it still hasn't really kicked off. No, actually, no, it has, to be fair. The end of 5, it properly kicked off, but it's still quite sporadic, and then you still get those awful, random Ferengi episodes, or you get the Hollow Suite ones or the baseball ones, which I have to just skip them because they're just boring. So
yeah, it takes so the first couple of seasons are extremely slow, and then historically Babylon 5 came on the scene, and I think they decided that they needed to up their game significantly. So that's when the Dominion War stuff starts to come in, and there are bits and pieces of it, but like you said, there's all the random episodes in there, and it sort of slowly escalates through season 6 and into season 7. But it's a pretty slow paced show. I still like it though.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it, but I in my head, it was a lot more action. What's your next bit of news?
So this is something that possibly only I am interested in. But,
okay.
One of my favourite films of all time is Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Right.
I think it's going back to slow pace. It's a very slow paced film. I don't think there's any dialogue for like the first 35 minutes of it. But it's one of my favourite films of all time, and it's an absolutely brilliant, iconic piece of science fiction filmmaking, and it's going to get re-released into the cinemas again this year.
Right.
And not only is it being re-released, it's going to be the original sort of really big format of film. So it's being released not on 35mm film, but on 70mm film, and the remastering of it and the tidying up of it is being done personally by Christopher Nolan himself.
Ooh, okay.
Who is a big fan of Stanley Kubrick and of the movie 2001. So obviously it's not Christopher Nolan's film, but the fact that he's involved in it, and it's him that's involved in tidying it up and getting it ready for a new release to cinemas, makes me even more excited. So
here's the important question: will you be able to watch it in your Ponzi cinema, or will you have to mix with the hoi polloi to watch it?
I'll be honest, I can't imagine that much riffraff going to see 2001: Space Odyssey. So even if I have to go to the common people cinema, I think I'll be fairly safe at, as long as I pick my time. Well, I think I'll get away with it.
The price you pay for your normal cinema, surely you could just rent out the whole cinema for the same price.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The tickets, just rent out or at least a couple of aisles, so you don't have to smell them, even if you can see them. Moving quickly on. Jon Favreau is working with Disney and getting involved in the Star Wars universe.
Yes, I had this to talk about as well.
Oh, right, yes. So he's going to be doing a new live-action Star Wars TV series for Disney's streaming service, and they've said the story is going to be set about 7 years after the end of Return of the Jedi. So this is before all of the new films that we've seen with Rey and Finn, all of that, but it's in that sort of segment before the First Order and any of that. Thoughts?
Yeah, I like this. I like the idea of it 7 years after Return of the Jedi. I think that's a good time to set it when, we've had all of the upset from the original movies is over, but it's still quite a long way away from Force Awakens. It seems like it's a good period in which to do that kind of a show.
Yeah.
So yeah, Disney streaming service though. So you say it's available on Disney streaming service, which means basically it's on Disney streaming service, but everybody's going to torrent it because, you just can't have all of these organisations trying to get their own streaming service by putting one incredible IP on there, like CBS with Star Trek Discovery and now Disney with their own Star Wars TV show. Yeah. It just doesn't work, does it? No. That battle's been fought and lost.
Well, we get Star Trek Discovery on Netflix because they bought it and the rest of Star Trek, so we get it through there. So we're not, people aren't going out and buying that. So we get HBO through something else. So it's just, I don't see people going out and buying all these individual ones. It's too expensive. It's just too expensive.
Yeah. So I have no more news.
I have one last bit, which is I stumbled across this trailer for a sci-fi film that I'd not heard anything about, and a lot of the sci-fi films that we talk about at the moment, or just in cinemas, tend to be part of a huge franchise. That seems to be the way. It has to be either something massive in a franchise, or if it's a very small sci-fi film, it ends up on something like Netflix, because that's the only place that can get a 20, 30, $40 million film made. But this one almost falls into that kind of space. I just heard nothing about it before. So it's called Kin, K-I-N.
Right.
And it's a slightly futuristic sci-fi story about a young boy in a town who stumbles across this thing. And I'm going to send you the trailer so you can watch it, and then we'll talk about it.
Okay. Yeah, it looks awesome.
So you finished it?
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to describe. It's almost like a low-key crime film mixed with a bit of sci-fi, mixed with a story about family and reconnecting family. It's quite deceiving in some ways.
Yeah, it looks really cool. So it looks like this kid looks like he has a troubled background. It looks like his brothers have fallen in with the wrong people, and then the kid finds this possibly alien weapon, or
it seems like it.
Some ridiculously science. So it's not set in a science. It's not set in a science fictional world by the look of it. But he finds what's undoubtedly a science fictional weapon, and then kind of looks like starts to defend his family with it, and it looks great. It was interesting to see that the producers of Stranger Things are behind it, because when I was watching it, one of the things that I was thinking about was we're sort of moving back into this era now where, in the 80s, there was all these, things with kids as the star, and it was all, typically they were from a poor background, or, they had some sort of troubled family background, and it was about them, discovering something and going on this voyage. So, things like The Goonies or Stranger Things nowadays, and that was a big genre back in the 80s that Steven Spielberg was the master of.
Yeah. And
it kind of feels like some of that is beginning to come back with Stranger Things and with this, because it's clearly I don't know what the target audience is, but it's clearly it's about this kid and this thing that he discovers and how that affects him and his family. So it looks great.
Very kind of just totally under the radar, stumbled across it by accident. So yeah, it's worth checking out. So it's kind of a low-tech sci-fi thriller called Kin. So watch out for that. It's coming out around August, I believe. So a few months yet.
Yeah, awesome.
Right, let's go on to the main feature.
Fighting positions. I just don't know why you'd ever want to bring back Cobra Kai. We do not train to be merciful here. Mercy is for the weak.
You may know the moves, but none of that matters unless you have balance.
Are you ready to learn the way of the fist? Yes, Sensei!
Johnny,
You and I, we aren't done.
Okay, welcome back. So in this part of the show, we're going to be talking about the new YouTube show, Cobra Kai. So this is something that I hadn't heard about a week ago.
Yep.
And then Steve mentioned it to me that I should check it out. And 48 hours later, I'd seen the entirety of season 1. So, we're going to talk about the show, what it is and what we thought of it. But initially, let's explain for those that haven't heard about it, and in the UK, I would imagine that's most people, what YouTube Red is. I don't know how much you know about it, Steve, but it was a strange place to put the show.
Yes.
To start, I think.
So from what I understand, since I've watched the whole first series, I've then gone and looked at interviews with the creators and the producers, and they said, we shopped this around at lots of places and we had many offers, but YouTube made such an offer that they said, we don't want you to take it anywhere else. We want this to be our kind of flagship show, before we then bring other things in. So from what I understand, YouTube Red is a paid TV service that has been around for a while, but there hasn't been very much on it until now.
Yeah, so it's available only in a very small number of countries. So you can't get YouTube Red in the UK. You can get it in the US, Australia, and a couple of other places. But if you have a YouTube Red subscription, which I think is about $6.99 a month, then it will do a number of things. So the first thing is that you get to watch YouTube without any adverts or anything like that. Mm-hmm. So it gets rid of all of the commercials on YouTube. It lets you do things that you can't normally do with the YouTube app. So, for example, if you're watching YouTube on your phone and you shut the screen down, then the video stops playing. Whereas with YouTube Red, it will continue playing, which makes it more useful as like a music player.
Right.
And there's also not very much, but there's some original content that you can only watch with a YouTube Red subscription. So if you're in the US or Australia or anywhere else that supports YouTube Red, then you can watch the whole of this show through the subscription and get it all for free. If you're like us in the UK and we can't get YouTube Red, and this is probably the only thing that I'm going to complain about with the show, then you get the first 2 episodes for free.
Yes.
And then each episode after that is £1.89.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's for the remaining 8 episodes. And given that each episode ranges between 22 minutes and 30 minutes long, it's quite expensive. So to get the remaining 8 episodes, you're gonna pay about £15. And for the amount of, don't get me wrong, it's a great show and I loved it, but it's not a cheap way of watching it.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
I don't know if, I suspect, given that's just me being an old man, they're not going to collect it in any capacity. It'll just be there, online, digital, and there won't be any kind of physical copy that you can buy. But then again, maybe they will. I don't know. Maybe they'll release it on Blu-ray and DVD. Who knows? But
I think you're right. I don't think they'll have any intention of physically releasing it into the shops. So paying for it is the only way.
Yeah.
On YouTube is the only way to get it, but you're paying £15, and that's quite expensive. I would have preferred to actually be able to get a YouTube Red subscription in this country and then watch it like that, rather than paying £15 to get 8 25-minute long episodes. Having said that, it is worth every penny though, because it's brilliant.
So let's talk a little bit about what it is for those who have no idea. So going 30 years back in time, there was a film called The Karate Kid. And this isn't the new one with Jackie Chan and Will Smith's son. And this isn't the other one. There was one before that, I think, as well. But this is the original trilogy of films starring Ralph Macchio as Danny LaRusso, who is the Karate Kid. And those films charted Daniel's son, as he was known in the films, his progress from being a complete noob to being a karate champion in America. A guy who, there again, it's that thing where he was a teenager, he moves to a new town with his mother, no sign of the father, he's trying to fit in, has trouble with a local bully, gets involved in a local karate club, sort of, and then rises to success and wins the championship. And that was the film. And then there's a sequel, and then there's a third one, which wasn't as great. This TV series takes place 34 years in time after the original film. So it's starring Ralph Macchio and William Zabka playing their original characters from the Karate Kid film. And that is Danny LaRusso and William Zabka played Johnny Lawrence, who was the bully character and the person that he beat in the final of the karate championship.
That's right. So if you haven't seen it, then it's kind of like Rocky for kids with karate instead of boxing. So Johnny Lawrence was part of the Cobra Kai dojo, and they were like, win at any cost. And he was the bad guy, whereas Daniel LaRusso was being taught by Mr. Miyagi, played by the brilliant Pat Morita. And it was, he was the underdog. He was the person whose odds were stacked against him. And it was one of the classic feel-good movies of the 80s, I would say. So it's really, really famous.
Yeah.
And now we get to meet up with these characters 30 years later and see what happened to them. And I'll just say, this is really a comedy drama, isn't it? Like there's lots of really, really funny bits in it, but it's not a comedy, I would say. It's something slightly different from that, more of a drama with funny elements in, I'd say.
Yes. It's like the film. There are bits that are really quite powerful. There are bits that are quite sad, but then you get these little nods that make us laugh, and there's lots of Easter eggs and things, lots of things I missed paying homage to the original films. And there's quite some touching bits as well, because they cut in original footage from the original film, and material that we've never seen from the original film, because the producers went back to the daily rushes of the film. They managed to find some of them and put those in. So there's all these little things that they've added into the show. And we should say that this isn't the first time someone's tried to get the original actors back to do this. They've said over the years they've had many, many offers. Funny ones, straight serious ones, weird twist, time travel, all sorts of things. So over the years, they've kind of said no to lots of people. And then they got to this one and they said yes, because it feels right. It's got the balance of paying homage to the past, but also make it very, very relevant to today, because in the original films, we only saw it from Daniel's side. This time, we get to see it from both sides. The fact that it's actually called Cobra Kai is slightly deceptive. It does focus on Johnny Lawrence to begin with, but very quickly as we learn more about him and how much of a troubled character he is, we learn that Daniel's life isn't perfect. Even though he was the winner in the film, his life is far from perfect now.
Yeah, so Johnny Lawrence, who was the original bad guy in the movie, he's pretty much fallen on bad times. So he's got a son who he never sees. He's clearly an alcoholic.
Yep.
Like he doesn't for the majority of the show, he doesn't have a beer out of his hand.
Yeah.
Including when he's teaching karate.
True.
He has a beer in his hand, and he's just he's fallen on hard times, and he's just clearly a very bitter individual. But actually, interestingly, our hero doesn't. He's just become very average. That's probably the right way to describe it. Like his greatest moment was winning that karate championship when he was like 15 years old, or however old he was meant to be. And now he's just, he's successful, but he owns he owns like a used car business, and he's got a good house and a good business and a good family. But he's clearly, all of the adverts for his car lot are based on, him karate chopping prices of vehicles, and he gives away a bonsai tree as, with every sale. And he's clearly, the one defining moment of his life was when he was a teenager, and that's influenced him up until now. So he has a good life, but he's a very average person, if you know what I mean. And that's actually that's an interesting character to have, that, his moment of glory is 30 years behind him. Yeah. And then he starts to, he bumps into Johnny Lawrence again, and they start, training their proteges in karate, and how the relationship between them and their new, the people that they're training develops, and between the two of them, how that develops as well is the really interesting thing about the show to me.
Yes, because as you said, Daniel seems to have everything and Johnny seems to have nothing, and yet they're both quite flawed. They're both having problems. Mm-hmm. And Daniel's lost touch. I mean, they both lost touch with what was important to them, whether it's family or friends, but with Daniel, it's his balance. He talks about balance to someone else and his protege that he's training. We won't say who it is, but he keeps talking, saying you have to have balance, you have to push away the negative things. But he's not practicing what he's preaching because he until he starts getting back to karate himself, until he starts going back into the dojo and he clears out his old sort of room and goes back in there, you don't start to see the balance in his life. You can see that he's troubled. And his wife's like, I don't know. She says at one point, I don't know who you are. I want the guy that I married who's a lot calmer and wasn't this angry person who nearly had a fight with someone in the street. She's like, who are you? And it's true, but he's lost his way, just as Johnny has also lost his way.
Yeah, and one of the things that I loved about it and I thought was really interesting that I don't really recall ever having seen in a movie or a TV show before is typically when you think about sort of a master-student relationship and how that's portrayed in most shows.
Yeah,
it's all from the point of view of the student. So the original Karate Kid is about Ralph Macchio, Daniel LaRusso, being taught and trained to be the Karate Kid by his master. And then, Luke Skywalker and Yoda, it's about Luke Skywalker getting trained and he's the person that we're focusing on, not on the teacher. And it's about how as a student having the wise master can be transformative to you. Whereas actually the thing that I genuinely don't think I've ever seen in portrayed in media before, and something that they do here, is the show to me seems to be about how having a student can turn you into a better person. And that was really interesting, particularly Johnny Lawrence, who starts out, in a real terrible state. Now, when he's all of a sudden almost sort of forced to care for this student and start to grow this dojo, even though he makes so many mistakes, so many hysterically bad mistakes when he's doing it. And the fact that he really doesn't seem to care about these people most of the time. And he's just sort of forced into this position that actually the fact that he's got these students and these people to focus on makes him a better person. And the fact that Danny has somebody to teach as well makes him a better person. And this is the first time I think I've ever seen something telling a story about the master-student relationship, but from the point of view of the master and not from the point of view of the student, and how it changes their lives. And I thought that was a really interesting thing to do.
Yes, and they've got very, very different styles as well, because Daniel LaRusso's karate style is all about balance in life. It's balance. It's pushing away the negative, finding peace, working on defense, and then attack. Whereas Cobra Kai, in the film and in this, is all about strength first, strike hard, strike fast, no mercy. That's the giant slogan that's painted on the wall of the dojo. And to begin with, Johnny's just like his old teacher, who's a guy called Kreese. He's very aggressive. He shouts at all of them. He calls them all awful names, even when he gets a dojo full of them. And his only loyal student kind of says, hang on, I thought you wanted all of these people here. Why are you now all shouting at them and telling them that they're awful and worthless? And he does tone it down a little, but he doesn't apologise. But I like the fact that some of the students rise to that challenge. There's a guy who, for the first bit, they just call him Lip.
Yeah.
Remember, so there's an unfortunate one of the kids at school who's being bullied. He's got a hair lip, and he can't talk to girls. He's got no confidence, and Sensei Lawrence is just shouting at him and just saying to all of them, "You're a loser. Look at you, Lip." Because that's the first thing everyone's going to see about you. Change the dialogue, change the story. And he storms off, and he goes, "Oh, I bet off without him." And then, like the next episode, this guy walks in with a purple mohawk, and it's Lip. But he goes, "No, your name from now on is Hawk." And he becomes a totally different person. He gains confidence. He's talking to girls. By the end of it, he's got a girlfriend. He's aggressive. It's transformational. It's brilliant.
But it's transformational by accident, right?
Yes.
Because so Johnny Lawrence is just such an awful guy. It's so unexpected because the typical, this kid is just completely either ignored or beaten up at school,
Yep.
and he just has no self-confidence, and he can't even speak to people. He barely has any lines for a good chunk of the show. And then the traditional narrative will be he goes to the dojo, and that's where he finds they embrace him, and that's where he finds acceptance, and through that acceptance he grows to be a better person. But he just goes to the dojo and he's insulted and beaten up on even worse than at school.
Yep.
And he just gives him such a hard time. Johnny Lawrence is just so evil to him, but through the fact that he's so evil, it causes him by accident to have a complete revelation about himself, and he just changes his appearance, and then that's how he doesn't find acceptance, but he gets sick of being rejected. And then he just completely transforms his life around. And it's so Johnny's had this incredibly positive experience. Johnny's had this very positive transformation of him. Yeah. But completely by accident, just by insulting him and beating him.
He's trying. This is he tries, but his techniques are terribly flawed. Mm-hmm. But as he goes on, he does learn what not to do, but it does take him a bit longer than usual, and in some ways it's obviously damaging because some of them drop out, but some of them do get better and better, and yes, this guy becomes Hawk thereafter, which was brilliant. I loved it.
And he's so he's running this dojo, and literally he's teaching them all how to be tough and everything, and then he'll just go straight into the back office and get another beer, and he's just constantly drinking beer, which I thought was, a really funny character flaw with him. And then there's the big moment where he reaches into his fridge, and instead of having a beer, he just has an orange juice.
Yeah, he drinks it. He's like, ugh, but he just keeps drinking it instead. Yeah, there's just great stuff. There's moments where you find out that he is trying with his students, and then he gets to the point where he's trying to get back with his son, and it just, some things can't be repaired, and he kind of gives up and focuses on other things that he thinks he can change. But by the same token, Daniel's also learning that some things can't be. Like, his son is awful. Daniel's got a daughter who's quite smart, she's quite independent, and she's doing well, but she's having problems with boys at school. But on the other hand, Daniel's son is fat, lazy, he has no interest in anything other than playing video games. Whenever they take something off him, he's so entitled he just tells the computer or someone to order him another one. Yeah, he's just a spoilt brat who doesn't want to do anything. So that's like another kind of thorn that's constantly bugging him, that he's like, his son's a pain in the bum, and there's problems with his cousin at work, and then you've got Johnny causing all these issues, and he's trying to outsmart him through business, and it's quite a mixed bag. So you've got lots of the stuff to do with karate, but then you've got all of their families and friends surrounding them, and Johnny has no family or friends, really, but he slowly starts to build up kind of a cast of characters in his life that we find out over the series. It's kind of amazing that it's only about half an hour per show. There's only like 10 episodes. Yeah, but so much seems to happen. I think I have to go back and rewatch it now.
But there isn't. So there really isn't any single character in the show that isn't an asshole, apart from Miguel at the beginning, who eventually turns into one himself. But you were saying the daughter's the popular girl at school, and is sort of superficially nice. But one of the things that happens in the first episode is she's in a car that smashes up Johnny Lawrence's car. Yep. And then they just drive off and leave his ruined car to it. And also, she used to be best friends with this nerdy girl at school, but now she's in with the young attractive crowd, and they're mean to all of the people that aren't within this little clique and things like that. So she's sort of superficially nice, but it sort of isn't.
They're all flawed in some way. Yeah,
they're all deeply flawed. Yeah,
it makes them feel real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And like we were saying, Daniel is has this superficially great life, but isn't really content with themselves. And the only person that is kind of who is just genuinely absolutely flawlessly nice is Miguel. who Johnny starts to train. I guess we're getting into spoilers now, but I thought that was a really interesting transformation as well. That from right at the beginning, he was like, he's nice, he looks after his, he comes from a difficult background, but he looks after his family, and he looks to Johnny to turn his life around. And then by the end of it, he's the Johnny Lawrence character in the final fight.
I don't know if he's the bad guy, but I think he's been influenced and affected by Johnny, who's trying to teach him to be strong, to stand up for himself, and not to be scared of bullies, of who he's fighting against. And that's sort of the core of Cobra Kai. But as the show progresses, Johnny's beginning to realise that, much to his own regret, he's too similar in his teaching methods to his own old teacher, who he never wanted to be like. And there's that strange struggle and a kind of push-pull where he doesn't want Miguel to go too far, and Miguel doesn't seem to understand the distinction, and Johnny's trying to reel him back in, and he's like, no, don't worry, I won't let you down. And they're not really talking and understanding each other anymore because they're focusing on different things. Johnny wants to win, whereas Miguel's more about crushing the enemy, because that's what he's taken from the strike hard, strike fast thing. So I don't want to spoil the ending, but it does kind of change things, and the balance is constantly shifting between, who's actually a good character and not. But everybody is flawed, everybody.
Yeah, and that's one of the great things. That's one of the great things about the show, that everybody does feel really real, and there's no real hero in it, and the people that do heroic things a lot of the time do it by accident rather than deliberately. So are we going to move on and talk about who Daniel's student is, because that's also a really interesting part of the plot?
Yeah, we can give it a little bit, but not too many spoilers. But through kind of by accident, originally it's part of a plan of his, but Johnny Lawrence has an estranged son called Robbie Keane, and Robbie originally goes and tries to get involved in Daniel's life to piss off his dad. And then it ends up, through various complicated things, that he becomes Daniel's karate student. And he starts to find this balance that he's been severely lacking, because there again, he comes from a troubled background. And there's these great reflections and mirrors of... He had a single mother that's raising him, so did Daniel back in the day. He has lots of problems, so does Robbie. He's totally out of balance. He's totally angry all the time at his dad and other things, and his school life and all this sort of stuff. And so he's the perfect candidate for finding a peaceful balance in his life through karate, which it slowly starts to happen, but it's not instant transformation.
But yeah, and the transformation that's interesting, going back to what I was saying before, is the effect that he has on Danny, in the sense that, Daniel was always about his past victories, and even he even sits on the board for the karate competition that he won, and everybody sort of hero worships him, kind of weirdly, even though it was like 30 years before and he's done nothing since. But it's this relationship with Johnny Lawrence's son that he opens up his like training room again, that's got photos of Mr. Miyagi there, and so he's starting to get this rediscover who he is and becoming like his old self. But then at the same time, when Cobra Kai wants to compete in the tournament, he just like tries to shut them down, which is really funny that he still kind of has that power over the tournament, even though he's not done anything other than sit on the board for like the last 30 years of it.
Yeah, the rivalry's still there. I mean, between him and Johnny, it's never gone away. They've both got issues about that original fight. Johnny claims his kick was illegal. He swept the leg in the film, which was obviously illegal. And it's still there, that rivalry, that hatred. And at one point, the two of them sit down in a bar and get a bit drunk and try to kind of find some common ground. And they do, to a certain degree, but it doesn't last. It ends up that they just, neither of them can let it go. For all Daniel's talk of balance and life and letting the past be the past, he can't let it go because it had some of the best moments, but also some of the worst moments in his life. And they're both haunted, I guess, by the past demons. And through karate with new students, they're trying to solve the past and their conflict with each other, because they almost get into a fight, but they don't. So they're doing it instead through these sort of surrogates.
Yeah, and there's a really interesting scene, I think relatively early on, when John is starting to train Miguel, and he finds out about Daniel LaRusso, and he's like, what is it between you two? And Johnny retells the story of the original Karate Kid movie, but from his point of view.
Yes,
and it's really well done. So he's talking about it, and it's showing clips from the movie, and it's really interesting to see this description of what happened in the movie, but from the other character's point of view. Yeah. And everything that he says is correct, but it's portraying Danny as the bad guy and him as the good guy, and it was a really interesting way of sort of reframing that movie, but from the point of view of who we're concerned, as far as we're concerned, is the villain of the first film.
It's funny because there's a sitcom that used to be on called How I Met Your Mother. Have you seen this?
Yeah, I've seen bits and pieces of it. Yeah.
So there's a character in it called Barney, played by Neil Patrick Harris, and his character has believed this in the TV show for years, that Daniel was the villain and Johnny Lawrence is the hero, and he tells it from the perspective of Johnny in this sitcom, to the point where at one point William Zabka and Ralph Macchio turn up in the sitcom, not as the characters from the film, but as themselves. And he says, thanks, Barney, I've never come across someone who's seen it from my perspective.
That's absolutely brilliant. So I'll be honest, I'm not a big fan of How I Met Your Mother, but if somebody was to just do my own personal edit where they just cut all of the bits with Barney in it and give it to me, I would have been more than happy with that, because it was, as far as I'm concerned, it was a very average show, but Neil Patrick Harris was amazing in it.
Yeah, but it's this theory that's been around for a long time, and that was the first time I'd seen someone talk about it from Johnny's point of view, and then to have him retell it, as you said, with cutting in original footage from the film, was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant.
And it really does a good job of sort of showing, there's two sides to every story. Yeah. Because nothing that Johnny says is inaccurate. It's just seen through his eyes, and it really does make Daniel sound like he's the bad guy. And I thought that was really effective and really, really well done.
And there's loads we haven't touched on, but there's so many clever nods and things that point back to the film. And things come full circle, whether it's being at the karate competition, whether it's the high school dance, whether it's dating someone in school. Some of these things have not changed in the 30 years. There's certain things that obviously have changed, technology and social media and all that kind of feeds in at a couple of points, actually. But it's still the same thing of you've got these two kids being trained by two adults in this case that don't fit in. They're both having problems in school. We get to see their lives. There's new issues to deal with, but it's the same struggle of wanting to fit in, wanting to find their place and have some kind of balance in their life and a kind of father figure or a mentor. And this time we get to see it from both perspectives, from both sides of the street, as it were. And it's a timeless tale, as it were. I just really, really enjoyed the show, and I can't wait for next season, because within a week, I think, of it being on YouTube, they said it's been picked up for season 2.
Yeah, and deservedly so. It's really interesting because I got the impression that I think they knew that they had a good show on their hands, but I think reading between the lines, I think they were pleasantly surprised at how positively it was received, because if you subscribe to their YouTube channel, the 10 episodes came out that I blasted through really quickly, but then a few days after that they put up a video that said, the reviews are in, and it was just a video that just had loads of quotes of how much people loved it. And then like another couple of days after that, they put up another really short video that was like, we've got a season 2. And it's clear that they were really personally invested in the show.
Oh yeah.
Not just because, like you say, they had loads of offers to resurrect these characters and do stuff with them, and now was when they chose to do it. But also, you know, they're producers on the show, and apparently they've always been best friends in real life as well. So you know, it's kind of it's clearly a labour of love for them. And I'm really pleased that it's been so well received and so successful, especially because, and I won't spoil what happens. What a brilliant! It's not post credits, but it's the equivalent of a post credit scene at the end of the final episode. It's like, that's awesome.
It's a great cliffhanger. It's just kind of like, what? So it just eggs you on that you got to watch it next year, next season. But there again, it's another proof there's so much good TV at the moment, and this is something definitely worth seeking out and watching. And you've got quite a bit of time until the next season, so find a way, put it on your list, add it to the schedule, whatever it is you need to do. Find a way to watch it and before next year when season 2 comes out. And they're not very long, as you said. They're only like 30-minute episodes each.
Yeah. Just before we finish, I want to drop a completely irrelevant fact in here.
Go on.
But so I'm sure on the show I've talked about all of the rumours that used to go around about actors and things like that from when I was back at school. So I think I've probably mentioned the Bruce Lee one, which was the way that Bruce Lee died is he was so incredibly fit that all his muscles were in such tension all of the time. One day he was training and he literally exploded. So that was what went around my school about Bruce Lee. Yeah. There was a Ralph Macchio one when I was at school as well, which was that Ralph Macchio, he's playing this 14 or 15-year-old kid, but in actual fact he was a 45-year-old man that had a genetic disorder that prevented him from aging.
Brilliant.
I don't know. I guess everybody's school was like this, but we just seem to have particularly hilarious rumours that would go around my school. But having said that, having now seen Ralph Macchio 30 years later playing Daniel LaRusso, I can kind of believe that he has this genetic disorder because he hasn't really changed very much.
No, but then you sent me that thing today talking about the ages.
Oh no!
So here's a disturbing fact. So it said, Pat Morita, who played Mr. Miyagi, he was 52. In the original Karate Kid film. Ralph Macchio is now 56 years old in Cobra Kai. So as the mentor, he's even older than Pat was when they made that. But, very, very similar age. So that just shows you it's totally come round again. It is the Rocky Creed thing as well. And Creed 2 that we'll be getting either later this year or early next year. It's that thing of the next generation. It's how you keep telling stories in the same universe without pissing all over the past and paying homage to it and doing it well. That this is how you do it, and Creed is how you do it.
It's bizarre, isn't it, how the perception of people is sort of fixed at the time when you see them.
Yeah.
Because I look at a picture of Pat Morita, who in the original Karate Kid film was only 8 years older than I am now. And I look at the picture of him and just think he's an absolutely ancient old man, even though he clearly isn't. And then I look at Ralph Macchio, who, like we've said, is 4 years older than Pat Morita was in the Karate Kid, and I just see Ralph Macchio from the 1980s, and it's very difficult for me to get my brain around the fact that Ralph Macchio is older than Pat Morita.
Yeah. Sadly, obviously, he passed away a while ago now. But I like that they kept some of the humour in there. I like the fact that they put little funny moments in. But there's also great pathos in this film as well. Real kind of payoffs, which they had in the original film too. So I'm glad it's that. As you said, it is a drama with some comedic moments, but it's not a straight laugh out loud comedy, and there's no laughter track either.
No,
which is good.
But when it's funny, it's really, really funny.
Oh yeah,
and effortlessly funny as well. Like they're not like straining to get a laugh out of you. They just pitch it perfectly.
It's interesting that the guys behind it, they originally apparently worked on things like Hot Tub Time Machine,
right?
Which I've not seen. And the first thing they said when they went into every meeting is, "We're not doing that." And they went, "Oh, Okay, now tell me your idea. So that's what they had to pitch with when they saw people, which I don't blame them. They probably thought, oh, God, what? It's going to be a what? And they're like, no, we're not doing that. Oh, okay.
Awesome.
Right, so if you've not seen any Cobra Kai, go and check out the first 2 episodes for free on YouTube Red. Just Google it on YouTube and have a look. It's such a good show. We highly, highly recommend you watch all 10 episodes.
Yep, and so I mentioned the pricing, but the first 2 episodes are free.
Yes.
So you can get a taste for it before you drop any cash.
Yeah, I think which is fair and a good deal of them. So, have you seen Cobra Kai? What did you think of it? Come onto the Facebook group and let us know. And you can email us, grouchygeeks@gmail.com. I say this every episode, but I do mean it, that we would appreciate it if you could become a patron for this podcast and the others on the Geek Syndicate network. So go to patreon.com/Geek Syndicate, and that would really help us with the running costs of the show.
Brilliant. As always, full of admiration.
Thank you. Thank you.
Excellent.
But I guess that's it for this month. So, in the meantime, it's good night from me.
And it's good night from him.
Good night.
Good night.